Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I'm guessing some of you might have tried the ritual from my last video, or maybe another one. So just in case something's hitched a ride, tonight's video is all about getting rid of unwanted entities.
Entity removal. A month or so ago, I came into contact with a friend I hung out with for a while. He was well, newly married, etc. However, recently, strange things have been happening. Cuts showing up on house members, religious symbols moved upside down, dogs barking, etc. I wasn't sure how much of it was psychosomatic or if it was a joke, as they knew my background in shamanism. Despite my hesitations, I figured it best to help in any way I could, though I'm still inexperienced and have my own demons to face. I did a rudimentary cleansing and warded his house, but found that the entity was most likely attached to his roommate. Both the roommate and the friend's wife have seen it. A tall black figure, obscured hooded face. Last night I was contacted again, as symptoms have manifested again, cuts and fevers. My work in this field is very minuscule, so I'm approaching the community for some aid in banishing it from the host. Obviously, it's strong enough that simple wards, sage, and prayers are not enough. Does anyone have experience in banishment?
Postcuts.
Not at the scene right now, I can tomorrow, however. Okay, call me a troll, dumb or whatever. I normally lurk a bit here for some interesting stories and stuff. But what's this about cuts appearing? This is some sort of sign like the others. I heard about those already, but cuts would be new to me. Any source about that is interesting? Because I sometimes wake up with deep scratches. You know, not like real cuts, but already bled a little bit and scab has built over them. In the past, I thought it was from my dog scratching me in my sleep while she dreamt or something, but she's been dead now for over a year, and recently I've had them again. They are also in places I can't reach with my nails. Some are on the back of my arms, triceps area, but some are also on my back. And no, I don't have anything in my bed that could cause them, and I always only notice them the next day, midday or evening, when they have already healed somewhat. The ones appearing on these guys look like clean knife cuts, somewhat healed but weeping when they wake up. But it's not only at night, they appear during the day too, out of nowhere, wide open.
Look at the sun for up to 44 minutes, as long as comfortable a day, either during the first hour after or first hour before sunrise and sunset. Your body will fill with light, and it will repel the entity. The sun's UV index during those times is such that it won't damage your eyes like staring at the late morning, noon, afternoon sun will.
Just as there are physical pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and parasites, so are there non-physical pathogens in the form of etheric parasites, discarnate humans, aliens, and demonic beings that can attach themselves to a living person, drain their energy, and influence their thoughts, feelings, and personality. The present situation is analogous to how several centuries ago, society knew nothing of physical pathogens and the bacterial and viral origins of disease. They fell ill and knew neither the cause nor medical remedy. Likewise, today people get attachments and know neither the cause nor remedy. Etheric parasites are negative thought forms, which are temporary beings generated in the etheric plane. The etheric plane is a non-physical substructure underlying our material reality. Etheric energies and constructs are invisible metadata that can influence physical events at the quantum level. In occultism, they are also called tulpas, egregores, or larvae. Etheric parasites are generated by human thoughts infused with emotion and intent. This creates an energetic construct in the ether, akin to an eddy in a river, but imbued with artificial intelligence and purpose. Its most common purpose is to continue its own survival by feeding off the same kinds of energy that gave rise to it. If it was generated through hate, it will induce hateful thoughts in its host to suckle more emotional energy of that type. These thought forms float around in the ether, which interpenetrates and underlies physical space and can influence the thoughts and emotions of people onto whom they latch. Thus, the negative thought forms generated by one person can induce negativity in another, proving they are not just internal subconscious subroutines. Occultists know how to create these intentionally, or to produce other effects in the ether in order to consciously influence the mind of another person. But most thought forms are created unwittingly by our everyday sparks of emotion, fantasies, and moments of ill intent. To people with clairvoyant vision, they can see these parasitic energies budding off the person generating them and turning into grotesque forms. The color of the energy is always black, red, orange, olive green, muddy brown, and other dull colors. When these turn into thought forms, they appear symbolically to the clairvoyant mind as amoebas, insects, crabs, spiders, black globules, etc. Again, the fact that clairvoyants can see these indicates they are objective constructs in the ether, and not just internal psychological processes. Discarnate humans are those who have died in the recent past, but have not fully faded out from the physical, etheric, and astral planes. Sometimes it is just their etheric and/or astral bodies that turn into non-physical parasites once their conscious spiritual core has left them behind. According to Rudolf Steiner, it is also possible for demonic entities to pick up the discarded etheric shells of deceased persons and put them on, thereby more easily masquerading as dead relatives to mediums, Ouija board users, and societies that perform ancestor worship. These discarnate humans, or their autonomous etheric astral shells, can latch onto a living individual in order to sustain themselves off that person's energy and live vicariously through them. Some of this was portrayed in the movie Ghost. Without a physical body, satisfying remnant physical addictions is impossible. And so discarnate humans can gratify their addictions by splicing themselves into the neural and etheric circuitry of the living in order to get a taste of physical sensations once again. Supposedly, they can also possess the bodies of animals even more easily than humans. Attachment to humans is easiest when parasites and hosts share some emotional point of resonance, say someone who committed self-termination latching onto someone who already has rage-quitting tendencies. Human entity attachments create a personality overlay upon the living host, creating cravings and biases that are out of character for the person. Someone who never smokes may suddenly get the urge to pick up the habit. Someone who is always friendly may pick up the attachment of an old angry war veteran and thus acquire a more masculine, gruff, and angry demeanor. Discarnate human entity attachments tend to be acquired by being etherically vulnerable while in proximity to such entities. Examples include graveyards, bars, war zones, and sites of fatal accidents. Some attachments are worse than others. Alien entity attachments are worse than human ones because they are placed into a person intentionally for purposes of monitoring, energy feeding, and manipulation, whereas human entity attachments merely create human personality overlays and common vices. Alien entity attachments function as energy parasites and may be used to torment or butter up an individual to play into an alien agenda, like believing themselves to have the soul of a gray, when really it's the etheric gray attachment that produces in them those behaviors and tendencies. It's mostly abductees or people in some way engaged or interacting with the alien phenomenon who receive these, or perhaps people in positions of power and influence who are useful to the alien agenda. The worst attachment of all are demonic ones. I am not sure of the true origins of demons. Maybe they are thought forms created by the collective negativity of humanity throughout the ages. Maybe they were effluvia left over from the creation of the universe. Maybe they were physical beings who advanced so far along the negative path that they transcended their physical bodies and took up residence in the darkest recesses of the lower astral planes. Whatever the case, fully possessed humans become sharp instruments of demonic manipulation and can carry a composed exterior and high social status, but underneath be dark, manipulative, cunning predators endowed with paranormal powers. Those who are not fully possessed and are struggling against the attachment process are worn down through depression, self-end tendencies, and self-destructive psychopathic behavior. Extreme sadism and perversion are also possible, as in the case of serial killers and murderers who typically admit a voice told them to do it, or that they couldn't help themselves, that something evil compelled them. Clairvoyants, young children, animals, and anyone with an iota of intuition can sense the presence of demonically possessed individuals and will feel threatened, repulsed, and creeped out by them. Demonic attachments can be picked up in several ways. One is through willful invitation, say through practice of black magic, left-hand path occult systems, or undergoing initiations into questionable secret societies. These all give a person increased power and knowledge in exchange for soul energy and debt to the demonic beings conferring those, which in the long run is a bad deal. But just as people get themselves into a hole through credit cards, some do likewise spiritually through the credit card of black magic. Dislodging negative entity attachments, demonic entities. Another path toward demonic possession is starting with a minor attachment and being too weak or willing to resist its pull toward ever greater forms of depravity. It tends to start with a severe weakness in a person, such as being extremely traumatized as a child, being a heavy alcoholic or drug abuser, and/or nurturing feelings of morbidity, self-termination, depression into a total lifestyle. Generally, demonic possessions require a greater degree of permission than other types of attachments. That is because demons target the astral body and spirit, meaning they are hooked in very deeply. Permission can be given consciously through rituals or inadvertently through cultivation of anti-human, anti-life, anti-spiritual attitudes and feelings. Entity attachments can be removed by starving them out and/or dislodging them directly. Starving them out means identifying what thoughts, emotions, and behaviors they persistently aim to induce and cutting these off, transmuting or replacing them with their positive opposites. Sooner or later, the entity learns that an attempt to induce this action creates the opposite effect, and they have no choice but to cease and hopefully leave. This is the standard approach for dealing with astral attachments, for the astral body has to do with passions, emotions, feelings, and impressions. Dislodging them directly is more difficult. Traditionally, this involves getting an exorcism, visiting someone practiced in shamanic journeying and depossession techniques, or getting a spirit releasement therapy hypnosis session. If you have access to these and can afford the service, look into a reputable practitioner. Beware of remote healers or those with icky vibes. Some are charlatans and others are disease vectors for even worse entity attachments. It can be done yourself provided you can enter a lucid state of consciousness other than waking, particularly that twilight state in between waking and sleeping. While awake, the astral and etheric bodies are stuffed into the physical and somewhat enchained by it. In this state, which Robert Monroe calls mind awake, body asleep, you are etherically empowered compared to your waking state. Not only can you see, feel an entity attachment, but you can take various actions to get it off you. This state is characterized by complete sleep paralysis, the sensation of disembodiment, hovering vibration, and so on. It's when your etheric body is naturally decoupled from the physical, which science would call the hypnagogic or hypnopompic state. If it's a simple etheric attachment, it should be localized to a part of your body. You can employ Robert Bruce's New Energy Ways technique to shuttle energy back and forth in that area, which can uproot the entity and make it drop off. Bruce also recommends taking an hour-long bath in water that has a cup of Epsom salts dissolved in it, though a swim in the ocean works too. Salt water has the effect of discharging such attachments. But keep in mind that physical tricks like these only address the most rudimentary of attachments. For astral and more powerful etheric attachments, you have to resort to internal psychic methods. All such actions ultimately come down to intent, and it's the vehicle of intent that varies from system to system used. In occultism, there is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which can be traced with one's etheric arms. Catholics have their pectoral crossing gesture. Robert Bruce talks about removing core images, traumatic memories, by visualizing them as photographs being pulled away from your inner field of vision, held at arm's length, flipped over, and then visualizing the critters attached to the back of the photo being burned. These techniques serve as a graphical user interface that tells your subconscious or higher self, higher mind to address the problem. In the case of core image removal, it sends the command to remove the crack in your psyche through which an attachment has sunk its roots. Robert Bruce's technique and other simple positive rituals may be effective while awake, but focused, although for extra punch I believe one does have to be in an etherically empowered state, mind awake, body asleep. That's because the gap between the conscious and subconscious minds is smaller in the hypnagogic, hypnopompic, and dreaming states. Note, however, that a talented psychic or shaman will not require such states if their etheric astral bodies have well-developed non-physical organs that create a 24/7 two-directional uplink with the higher mind. But for the rest of us, a mind-awake, body-asleep state is a temporary means of achieving something similar. For dealing with astral entities, I prefer charging myself up with divine power, honing in on the feeling of the negative overlay, encompassing my being around it from all sides, then gripping on tightly while accelerating my vibes and confidence in order to completely overwhelm and electrocute the thing. It's my instinctual response and has been used with success several times. I have called upon the power of Christ and whatever else fills me with righteous power. All this is done in that mind-awake, body-asleep state where it's most effective and the results more noticeable. This works best on demonic or negative entities who carry an anti-divine signature. You may feel the entity resisting the process, which can manifest as an uncomfortable electrical tingling or pulsation, like gripping onto an electric fence, and perhaps the feeling of writhing and sounds of shrieking and growling, or perhaps the projection of ghoulish faces at you to terrify you. It's important to feel neither fear, weakness, or malice while doing this. In fact, the more positive and empowered you make yourself feel, the better and more effective the process. You are aiming for the intent of separation and the changing of vibrational rate through an elevation in your emotional state and level of confidence. This technique given in the previous paragraph is for non-human entity attachments of a malicious kind and works also against psychic attackers. I would not use it against human entity attachments and haven't yet needed to. The latter, I'm assuming, could be spoken to, reasoned with, and peaceably guided into the afterlife. But for negative entities of the astral parasite, gray alien attachments, demonic and subdemonic types, I don't play softball.
I'm indebted for the explanation and wisdom, friend. I'm on my way now to devise a plan. I hope you stay with and provide more advice. As of now, I believe it to be a negative parasite. I have a friend with experience in this, but would prefer not to pull those guns out, as the inhabitants are Christian, and I feel something they could perceive as dark magic would only open the door wider. While my journeying skills need much more time to grow, I'll look into the energy theory you mentioned and attempt an extraction. Another method I've been considering is a voodoo seal by way of saints, something I feel would fit their paradigm better. Regardless, I'll be back later tonight to update and discuss. You've been a great help. I hope your path is clear and unburdened. Thank you.
Background. I was 14 when this happened, and I had tinnitus, look it up, my whole life. Around 2 weeks ago, I started having sudden waves of fear from it. Our house was also infested with mice, so those little dudes were sometimes jump scaring me, which didn't help my mental state at all. It's like 9 p.m. I'm taking a shower and hear a small bang outside. I think nothing of it. I get out of the shower and start drying my hair. The hairdryer seems weird though. The air from it smells really weird and it sounds different, just like my tinnitus. I also think nothing of it. I stop drying my hair and almost crap myself. What the actual hell? There is a handprint on the outside of the window, and there are even water droplets from the outside, like somebody was breathing on the glass. I quickly put my clothes on and go tell Mom. When I leave the bathroom, I suddenly get this huge wave of fear, weakness, and feeling of dehydration throughout my body. I drop to the floor and hear a distant laugh as I pass out. I don't have a dream while I'm passed out, but I feel weird. Like I can't think or know anything. I'm trapped inside my own mind and just hear it. My fucking tinnitus. Just constant ringing. Nothing else. Just that without a single thought that comes through my mind. Now this is what others told me that happened. My mom hears a bang and goes to look what happened. She sees me on the floor in front of the bathroom and in a small pool of blood and immediately calls an ambulance. Apparently I open my eyes slightly and quietly start chanting something in Latin. The only word she could understand was aqua. The ambulance comes and takes me to the hospital. My mom is with me the whole time. They can let a single relative in the ambulance with the patient. I stopped chanting halfway to the hospital. They did a blood test and said that I had like 5 times the normal sugar content and that I was extremely dehydrated. Note: I drank 2 liters of tea that night. I wake up but feel extremely heavy and exhausted. The nurse says something about me sleeping for a day and that I'm dehydrated, even though they pumped huge amounts of water into me. I see my mom on the verge of tears right next to me. I ask her what happened, but I pass out. I woke up later. I feel a bit better and will see Mom again. She tells me everything. Apparently, she was by my side the whole night, and I was chanting again that night. I ask her for my phone and headphones. I immediately start listening to music and try to clear my mind. She finally goes home to have some sleep. She told me. Night comes and I'm going to sleep. Then I see it. Something is in the upper corner of the room. It's something like a black mist. I feel like it's there, but also isn't. Like it's smiling at me, but also isn't at the same time. I'm paralyzed. I pass out and the same thing happens. No thoughts, dreams, emotions, just the ringing. I wake up like the first time and immediately put music on. Pass out. I woke up and couldn't move. I can't think or do anything. I'm just hearing music and looking into the same corner. It's there again. That thing. That continues for several days. I don't know what's happening and I can't even know or don't know because I can't even think. This is what the nurses said about me. I was chanting something the whole time I was paralyzed. They could also make out only the word aqua. Everybody felt uneasy in that room where I was. They took me to the thing that shows people your brain waves or some shit, and it all came out normal. I was listening to music the whole time, and nobody wanted to even touch me. I woke up. I feel extremely weak and dehydrated. I can barely move. I see my mom. Somebody is screaming that I finally got better. What.pg? I get told what happened. All of my what.jpg. They said one of the nurses tried to take my phone away, but my heartbeat went up by like 40 the second she unplugged my headphones. I talked to my mom for hours. I tell her how it was from my perspective. She is a bit into occult stuff and said she tried to look into the aqua thing, but she didn't find anything. I finally get better and that paralyzing thing doesn't happen again. I need rehabilitation for some reason. The nurse takes me to the rehabilitation place or whatever it's called and starts to move parts of my body. I realize how much I can't move. I ask her to turn the heating down because it's hot. She tells me that the air conditioning is already on max. I look out the window and realize it's summer. I was like that for 6 months. I freak out. She tells me all the details about it, how the elders from the room next to mine were freaking out about me and feared the room right next to them. One even got a heart attack. I try to stay calm. I have physical therapy for about a month. Then the hospital kicks me out because they don't want to have anything to do with me and force my mom to take me home. I could barely walk at that time. Because my mom is also a physiotherapist, she gives me exercises to do. The night I get home, I see it again. That thing. I can move and think. I realize it. I passed out. Wake up to my whole room being very humid. It was like being in a swamp, like the Shrek himself claimed my bedroom as his kingdom. I can't move much, so I'm on my phone the whole time until Mom comes in and gives me exercises to do. I saw it the whole day in the corner of my eye. It was staring at me. I was finally sure about that. I told Mom about it, and she blessed the house with salt. It doesn't happen again, like that fog thing. I only see a handprint every now and then outside my window. It freaks me out. I saw it like 5 minutes ago, the handprint. It has already faded as I'm writing this, but it reminded me that I should write this. Anyway, after like 2 months of rehabilitation, I could finally go back to school. I never told anybody else other than my mom. I fear my tinnitus now, and I can't hear silence because then I get it and I start freaking out. I have to sleep with a rain sound generator on, and I listen to music constantly.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.